This is Joyce
and Blake,
and welcome to
Savagely Scaled.
We're so excited to share this episode where we sit with the amazing, the wonderful, the beautiful, and talented Carol Letner. She sat down with us to talk a little bit about what she does, of course, as a physical therapist, and also to share a little bit about her business, which is Inspire. And she's going to tell us a little bit about her story, how she got to where she is now, and also share with us a little bit of her CrossFit goals and journey. Anything else you want to add, Blake?
No, I'm just so excited because this was a great episode to sit down and talk with her. And like you said, just go over the history and how she became a physical therapist and her expectations of her business.
Right. And she also talks a little bit about some of the common CrossFit injuries that we see and how to kind of work with those. So if you want to learn a little bit more about that, stick with us in
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, everyone. We are Savagely Scaled with Miss Carol Letner here, who's going to be talking to us a little bit about her experience, her journey into CrossFit, and also talking to us a little bit about rehab and wellness. So thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
What is your
Business
name?
Inspire Rehabilitation and Wellness here in Kingman CrossFit.
Yes. Nice. I remember when you were going through those logos.
Yes. It was a logo choosing process.
Which is hard.
It was terrible. It was really terrible.
Ours was the name with a logo because we have Savagely Scaled and we're like, oh, well, people can put just the beginning letters. And I was like, oh, 2 of that letter is not good.
Right. Yep. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, that's a big thing too, because you want your name to really
inspire.
Well, yeah. And speak to people like,
True,
I could have just thrown, hey, Carol Letner, physical therapy. And that's not what I wanted. I want it to be like something that I stand for, and inspiring others just speaks volumes to me. So I wanted Inspire in there someplace.
Yeah, because I remember when you were inspiring my back and you were going through that. I was like, Inspire is just so nice because like it's just like, I don't know. And I keep lunging at the mic, but it is something that like
keeps you going even when you have an injury,
And knowing that you have something to get to and this work is for something. So it's very nice. But let's start with Carol. How long have you been in CrossFit?
I was thinking about that. I think it's been at least 3 years. I can't remember my start date. It feels like it's been a lot longer than that. Maybe it's not been that long, but at least 3 years, maybe going on 4.
Okay. Wow. What drove you to CrossFit?
Well, it's really funny because I guess I'm old enough that I was around when CrossFit was first coming out. And at that point, I was a therapist back in Illinois in the Chicagoland area. And I remember I was getting all these patients that were coming in. The clinic I worked at that time, it was a physical therapy clinic within a health club.
Oh, okay.
So it was kind of a cool setup. Yeah, sportsy. And I like that. All of a sudden I'm getting all these patients. They're like, with these orthopedic injuries, like, I was like, what happened? What hurt? Well, I started CrossFit. I'm like, what the heck is CrossFit? Like, what is injuring all these people? Right. And I think when it first came out, it was just like erratic and wild and like, I don't know, like, I feel like the coaching wasn't great. And maybe I'm wrong, but at least in that area, I was getting a lot of people injured with it. I remember thinking, dang, I am never going to do that CrossFit thing, man. That's just like dangerous. Like that's, recipe for disaster. And I've always done, not always, but I guess in my adult life, I've always done physical things. I was a big runner. That was my big thing, triathlons.
And mind you, Carol's body looks amazing. Very strong.
Stop. So I never kind of got into that. And I had some friends that had done CrossFit and they kept saying, you should really look into it. It's like, it's kind of your thing. And I'm like, I don't know, all those injuries. We moved to Kingman and, I was kind of, struggling to find, quote, my people, I guess. And,
it's hard making friends as an adult.
Yep.
As an adult and as a healthy adult.
Yes.
That was a big thing. And not that I like all my friends, like I have this like list, like, okay, you've got to be healthy to be my friend. That's like ridiculous. But
no, but it's usually like you meet them in a bar, kind of like a significant other, or you go out, like eating is a big, huge thing.
Right.
Drinking is a big, huge thing to be social.
Right.
But it is, because even like me coming out, it was like, okay, I want to have some mom friends, but there are different types of mom friends. There's also different types of friends in Kingman where it was like, okay, well, we can go out that night. I'm like, oh, I'm with my kids. I can't. So it is like, but as you become an adult also, I feel like it's okay to be like, okay, this is the type of person that I gel with the best and get the best friendship out of, compared to when you're in middle school or high school or in college, where
you're forced to be around these people every day.
And you're learning who you are. We know who we are and we know who we want around us.
So I don't know. I can't remember like where I saw Kingman CrossFit. I just remember it was one day I was sitting at work and I was like, I don't know. Let me just see. So I looked it up and I think I called and, they said, you can come on in, and I met Coach Dave.
Yeah.
And I went into this going, all right, this is going to be a bad idea. And this is probably going to be like, an injury prone thing. I'm going to go in there. I am not going to tell them I'm a therapist. I'm going to see what they know.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see what this is like. So I met Dave and we walked around, and he kind of told me a little bit about CrossFit, and we set up the first 3 classes. Like, I'm still not going to say anything about being a therapist. Of course, it did kind of come up, but so as we're working through, I was like, wow, well, and you guys know Dave. I mean, he's amazing.
Welcome wagon.
And I was like, he really knows his stuff. And I think around that time, then maybe Chris was coming in or something. I met Chris, and I'm like, dang it, he knows his stuff too. Like, this might be a legit thing. And after I finished my 3rd CrossFit workout, or the time with Dave, and he had kind of like programmed like a little WOD, I was like, this is awesome. And he's like, you're going to do very well with it. And I think it kind of fit it checked the things off that I was looking for. Everybody was super warm. Everybody was so welcoming. I remember going home to my husband and being like, I've been looking for my people and I found them all under one roof. I was just at the wrong place. They were all here. And, not to say that I haven't had injuries, even as a therapist, we're stupid sometimes too.
Yeah.
And things happen. I'm not, 17 anymore either. So, I have to pay attention to what I put my body through. But yeah. And, the rest is history. I we talk about life before CrossFit, and dang it, I wish I had found it when I was younger.
Oh man.
Started earlier.
Much. Yeah. I was like, I can just see myself at 16. And my mom even told me, like, when we both started together, she's like, I wish I could have gotten you into this in high school or right after high school, because you would have been amazing at it.
Right.
And it would have just been better for you. And I was like, I know.
Yeah.
It just sucks.
But maybe it wasn't the right time either. So I always think about that.
Because like how you said, like, I feel like back then CrossFit, like even if you look at the games, like somebody had on Instagram about the old toes to bar, and it was literally just them trying to get their toes to the bar, no kipping, no like stabilizing. And I feel like that was that back then. I have to lift that. I just have to lift it. I don't know what these lifts are. Just doing it for the grunt work.
Right.
So I love how it has transitioned over the years, and it has grown since the reason why I stayed with it is because I had amazing coaches back in 2013. And even when I moved, had amazing coaches during, 15, 16. Every time I've moved, the coaching and the knowledge is what kept me.
Absolutely.
So it was really good. And we are glad to have you here. And I forgot to say that this is the Carol that we talk about, Carol and Dennis.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I need to clarify that.
Right. Dennis, the number 1 fan of Savage Skills.
Yeah, she's always like Dennis the Menace. And then I'm like, Dennis.
Exactly. For sure.
Okay. So we have your path of CrossFit. What made you want to be in physical therapy?
Oh, that's a good question. So it's kind of a long, convoluted thing. I'll try and kind of condense.
We got time.
Right. I always knew, and I don't know how, I always knew I wanted to do something in the medical field. When I was young, I was born with a subdural hematoma. Okay. It was at birth. And back then they did things kind of crazy. And now they just laser these things off. It was a a large birthmark on my head, and my parents were really freaked about it. They wanted to take care of it right away. They didn't want it to be like a stigma or something that would be a negative as I was growing up.
Yeah.
So when I was really super young, they found a surgeon that was willing to do surgery on a small, and I'm trying to think, I was less than a year old when I had my first surgery.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they had to drive to a town that was like 45 minutes away to find a surgeon that would work on this. Anyway, so I had it removed, and I had to have several surgeries afterwards to kind of smooth out the work.
Mm-hmm.
And the one time I was in the hospital, when I was a little bit older, I worked with a recreational therapist, and I was like, that like really like stood out to me. I was like, that is super cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'd go down, we do crafts, and I love doing crafts. And it was just like a really neat thing. And that kind of stood out to me. I kind of remember that. And then as I got into music, I started hearing about music therapists. I'm like, well, that's cool because I'm a musician. That's kind of cool too.
You're a musician. Oh, wait.
I
Yes.
am. I'm a violinist.
For some reason, I just saw you on a guitar.
Oh,
an
yeah,
electric guitar.
Oh,
But
no,
not
that would not be good. That would not be good. But
That's right. You are a violinist, and you perform
with the Mojave Community Orchestra.
Yes.
Not this time, not this year right now. I'm not
Oh.
doing it, but yeah,
Fair.
once since I moved here, I have been.
Nice.
That's cool.
Go ahead.
So I kind of thought about that, and then it really got real sciencey as I was realizing I just really loved science, and I then wanted to be a plastic surgeon because it was a plastic surgeon who had done the surgery on my head. And he was a kind of a cool guy. He had neither index fingers.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, first I was kind of like, when I realized that, I was like, wow, my parents like chose a plastic surgeon that didn't have index fingers. But anyway, he was a cool guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, that would be really cool. I want to change other kids' lives too. Like he was so good. Like it was a neat thing. So I had very traditional parents. And I can remember we would sit down at the dinner table and talk about like, what are we going to do with our lives? And, you know, what's the future going to look like? And I can remember my dad always sat to my right. Jan always sat right across from me. And I was like, I want to be a plastic surgeon. And I can remember Dad being like, well, that's great. But, you know, someday you might want to get married and have children. And that probably wouldn't work so well. And I remember thinking, well, why? You know, but again, you know, super traditional. And, you know, then for a while I thought, I could be a professional musician. And again, my dad, you know, well, we can have things that are passions in our lives and things that are professions.
Yeah.
And maybe that can be a passion for you. And again, great advice.
Right.
Yeah.
Super great advice. So then how did I get to therapy is actually from my sister, Jan. And Jan is 19 months older than I am. And she went off to college and I was in high school. And she started out in physical therapy. And I remember her coming home on a break and, you know, she was having these conversations with my parents. She's like, I just don't think physical therapy is for me. And of course I'm like listening. I'm always like listening to these conversations.
Get out of here, Carol.
Right. And I remember her at that point, she was talking about going into occupational therapy. And I was like, well, what is it about physical therapy that you don't like? And she was kind of going through this. I'm like, that sounds really cool. Like that, I think that's my thing. You know, it was kind of like fitnessy but yet caring for people and taking care of people. It met my dad's qualifications of it's something I could do and get married and have babies and it would still work as a career.
Right.
And that was where I went. I kind of went full speed ahead. I went to Augustana College in Rock Island for my undergraduate. I had a music scholarship, which was great.
Nice.
I was thinking I was going to be able to do biology and music. And it got to that point where there was too many overlapping classes. It was a small liberal arts college and they were really cool. They let me act like a music major. So I got to do like a senior recital. I got to be concert master. I got to do all these cool things with violin, but yet still go down my physical therapy path.
Oh, awesome.
I graduated that and I went to the University of Illinois at Chicago, which was another 2.5 years for physical therapy school. Came out with my bachelor's degree, which they don't even have bachelor's degrees in physical therapy anymore.
Yeah.
And started practicing. And I want to think I had been out probably 10 or 15 years and they came out with doctoral degrees. I was like, ooh, I like that. And they had what were called post-professional doctorate degrees.
Oh.
So basically what that was, it was for people who had already been practicing and could kind of jump in and take off where you stopped and go into getting your doctorate.
Okay.
Wow.
So yeah, I went and I got my doctorate, and here I am. All these years later.
Really cool.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I've met your parents.
Yes.
So like just seeing your dad, oh my God, he's so sweet.
They're so sweet. He's just waiting outside.
Yeah. And
Right?
so is your mom, or when they walk together, because I know
Yes.
that you have your sessions with her. And then when we did pictures and he was doing the lifting of the weight, I was like, oh my God, he's so cute.
Yeah.
Cute.
And then her mom is so sweet because she's also like, granted, me and Maggie do have 2 kids and we look very similar. So she's always like, your kids. And I was like, no, but they could be mine. They could. Age-wise, I could have 4 kids.
Right.
And it's hard because she has a boy and I have a girl.
Right.
Or no, she has a boy and a girl. I have a boy and a girl. But they're
Right.
just vice versa. So she's like, oh yeah, no, those are your kids. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Because all those kids are
and
here
they're
all the
always
time.
around.
They are.
But like when she tells me like the cute stories of when she was pushing Easton, I was like, I wish, but my son is very heavy, so that
Right.
would not work out.
Right.
But I was like, man, I wish I was here to see that.
It was very cute. It was very cute. Yeah, I liked it.
So if your CrossFit story, your physical therapy beginning, do you have a question?
No, I was just
Okay.
going to say, how did that come
How
together?
did that come together?
How did CrossFit and physical therapy come
Yep.
together? It was actually really a kind of a natural mix. Again, I knew I had found that this is just not a gym for me. And I think you guys are the same way. Like, this is my family. This is like, I almost get teary, like thinking about like, this is
Right?
my family.
Yeah, because we've talked about that too of like, yeah.
Right?
Oh.
All the
'Cause
feels,
we're
right?
all a family, and like you have also like a camping, and we have like our girls, but we intermix so amazingly that we aren't like, oh, that's them on that side and we're on this side, or those are those people that are weird, or oh, of course they all hang out because they all work at the hospital. Like, we're so intermixed, but we still have our little groups that we can also lean on. But I have also had times when I've had to lean on people that I normally only see at 8 a.m.
Right.
or like 5 a.m. I've always, whenever I've come in subbing for Chris, I told him, I go, 5 a.m. and my nighttime people at 8 a.m. and noon are good too. But 5 a.m. and my nighttime people are just amazing. And I don't know if it's because you guys are half asleep and you guys just deal with
There's
me.
probably that.
But like, I just love them. I love all of our members, but I know that I am so welcome to go to each member if I was having a rough time, like even Brad or something like that,
Right.
like, and just being like, I'm having a really rough day.
Right.
And they're like, are you like, what do you need? Do you need a hug? Do you need this? I don't know if Brad would hug me, but
Dennis would.
yeah, Dennis would. Come here, sister.
Right. Right.
But like having that, or even like how you invited Dennis into the group, and it's like he just like fell right into like the fold with everybody, or me getting to know you or Joycey or everybody. And not every gym's the same. I just feel like our gym, we can have smaller groups, but we also have one big, huge group.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's
Absolutely.
special.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and I think, when I realized this was my place, and I realized that all of our owners, all of our coaches, they're in it. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's a livelihood for them as well too. But it's not just that, and you can tell that, right? And I was like, if I'm going to do something with this, that's the place I'd want to do it with, right? And honestly, it really kind of started as an afterthought. People would come up into class, me, and like, hey, I know you're a physical therapist. What about this, or what about this? What about this? And which is totally cool. I was fine with it. And I don't know. There was just one day I was kind of like, hey, Chris, what would you think if I set up a little massage table or something, and I could just work on some of the members in that. And he was like very supportive of it. He's like, yeah, cool. And you guys remember from the very beginning, literally, I had a massage table. I stored it in the closet.
Yep.
Put it up and down every time, and
he had his sign that we would take to events, that big huge sign that you would also put behind once we had that
we'd
going.
hide behind there.
right, right. So yeah, that was stage 2 where we, it was my time behind the curtain, right? Because it used to be kind of over here, and right out in the open, and it was fine and it worked. But then he gave me a curtain. It's like wow, and then he came to me one day and he was like, I just feel like you deserve to have something a little bit more private. And by that point, it had been almost a year.
Yeah.
That it had been building, and I was getting more and more clients, and then they built the room over here, which was just so super cool. So it just kind of started from just like casual people coming up in the gym. And I had, and I don't know if I had told Chris this ever either, but when I was a brand new therapist, so I've been a therapist, I think this is my 30th year, which makes me feel like super old. But anyway,
you look super young. So you started when you were 16.
I did. Yeah. I was a prodigy.
That's what we're saying. Yeah.
Right. I always wanted to open my own practice. And at that point, like back in the like late 90s, insurance stuff, it was just stupid. It was ridiculous. And I just, I kind of was like, you know what, that's going to be too much. And then I got married, I had kids, and it was kind of always in the back of my mind. And then during that time, I guess I've always had this kind of entrepreneurial spirit. I opened a music practice within a Montessori school, and I did that while my kids were little. That's cool. Teaching music.
Gosh, how awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was nice because it kind of gave me some flexibility. It helped with tuition for Montessori school, which is crazy. I was doing home health at that time just to keep my foot in the therapy world. But it was always that was kind of like, oh, that was kind of cool. I kind of ran my own thing, and I hadn't really thought too much more about it. And then this kind of came along, and it was like that piece of,
missing puzzle.
It was, but then you question, you're like, am I too old for this? Am I too this? Am I too that? And again, Chris was really good with kind of encouraging me.
I would say, like, Chris, if you have any idea and you have like a backing, like even when I went out and got my certification for the pre and post for postpartum and prenatal and things like that. And I was like, oh yeah, I graduated. I was just doing it to get more knowledge. And yeah, I would like to do clients. He's like, no, like, let's get this going. Let's do this. Like, he does see like each thing that to better that person and how can he help. Sometimes it's very domineering of what he would do in the business.
Sure.
And somebody like me does need that at times. And at times I'm like, this is way too much for me. But he does have that like, okay, well, what about this? What about that? You can do it. You got this. You need to do that. So I feel like for you, like just aligning your guys' paths was like amazing to set you into that motion.
Well, and I think, then taking my CrossFit level 1, it kind of solidified that even more. It was kind of like, which I loved. I mean, I so encourage people to do level 1. It was really cool as a therapist, but also as a CrossFitter. Yeah. And it just kind of, again, things keep marrying the two together, therapy and CrossFit. And I think it's really cool when I guess the world's kind of collided, honestly. Yeah. And, once I got my private space, it was kind of that next jump of like, you know what, I'm going to try a couple insurances. I want to see what this is about. I did it all cash pay for the first year. And then in this last December, once I had a space, I knew in a community like this, finding that good access to care is hard.
It is.
And I knew what I wanted to provide, and I wanted to provide one-on-one care, and I want me to be the only therapist you're going to see. And that's like the best to me. And I know that knew that I could help a lot of people, but I wanted to help more people.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, now in the days of, high, insurance payments and all that kind of thing, a lot of people are into the cash pay, self-pay. And, when you're seeing a therapist one-on-one, you can get better faster. There's all these great things with it, but some people that's just not a thing. And, so I decided, let me dabble in the insurance world a little bit, and got into being able to see Medicare patients, being able to see patients that have Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Awesome.
Which has kind of opened it up too, because what was happening is I was having members saying like, hey, my husband hurt his shoulder. Can you help him? My mom needs help. My grandma needs help. And so it kind of, opened things up a little bit more for me as well.
Nice.
So, yeah.
I know she helped me through 2 injuries.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were one of my very first.
Now we're back on it. I was, yeah.
You were one of my very first patients.
I'm like, I'm going to Carol, man. I don't trust anyone else.
I tell everybody, when I hurt myself, I was like, oh, you got to go see Carol. Like, she's the best with that. So let's talk about injuries and with CrossFit. Are you seeing that CrossFit is causing them? Do you see like it's more of something that has happened in the past?
And also, what are the most common injuries you see in CrossFit?
Yeah. Or what is leading to it? I know there's a lot of questions.
There is,
right? My old brain has to remember all of it.
Have you seen more injuries in our gym due to CrossFit? Not like poor coaching, just like mainly.
Like certain moves?
Yeah.
No, you know what?
Or just like because that's the number one thing that I hear also when I talk to people about CrossFit is it used to be back in the day, I don't want to be bulky. Then it was my doctor advised me not to do it because there's so many injuries. Same with my physical therapist. So many physical therapists that I don't see because the first thing is, oh, you're doing CrossFit.
Or chiropractors too tell me the same thing.
That too. And it's like, okay. These are also injuries that I had before CrossFit that I obviously am not doing.
Right.
Do you see like more of CrossFit causing these injuries, like beginning injuries of it?
You know, I think it can go a lot of different ways, really. You have people that come into CrossFit and maybe they've started having some injuries, so they think the fix is I need to exercise more. Okay. It could be that people have been more sedentary and they start doing some things like that. I honestly think mobility is a big thing. Mobility, flexibility.
Yep.
And if you're not doing a regular stretching program, could you do some things in CrossFit that could injure you? Yeah. And I have to, I guess, throw myself under the bus here. Right when I started CrossFit, gosh, probably within the first couple of weeks, Chris came up to me. I was always taking Chris's classes because I went at 5. And he came up, he goes, I know you're a therapist, but like your mobility sucks.
Yeah.
And you need to fix this. You're going to get really hurt. And I was like, you know what? You're really right.
Yeah.
I'd been running for so long. Yes, you need mobility, but not to the same thing as if you're
if you're going to lift and set yourself up for things, and even working with the rig, like that mobility of kipping, is completely different. Some people just look at it and they're like, "Oh, they're swinging." I was like, "Your shoulder mobility plays a part."
Right.
Same with like cleaning your elbows. Like somebody had asked me about like how far does your elbows go?
That was me.
Yeah. And I was like, it depends. Like if you're in a competition, it's really up to that person's mobility and how far that elbow or that shoulder can allow that elbow to go. But it also can create injury if we have our elbow behind that bar in that clean setup, because now all that weight's in the front and now we're dealing with our back.
Right.
So it's also the biggest thing is mobility and what your body can do and how do we get better at mobility.
Right. Well, and I think, we don't walk around in an overhead squat position.
Yeah.
I mean, how often do people, I mean, we don't do that in our normal life. Right.
Sure.
So I think a lot of it comes out in that way, I guess. So I think another great thing at our gym is I feel like all of our coaches are really good at, not that they know like the nitty gritty of like a certain injury of whatever, but they're really good at identifying like, it looks like you're struggling with maybe that deep squat. I'm going to put a box under you. And so what that's doing is it's showing that yes, there's a mobility issue. But I think then all the coaches are also like, if we can't coach them into a better position to help avoid injury, hey, go see Carol. And I so appreciate that. I love that. I always talk about, at some point I'd love to do just like a mobility screening program for people.
Yes.
I think that would be great to kind of catch some of these things before they become an injury.
Yeah, I would love that in our on-ramp process.
Right.
And I know that would technically add an extra day, or if we can open it with a welcoming of a screening and then going into the first one. So cutting our first day kind of in half,
right?
Or something like that, because it does help. There's times, and I know Dave is the majority of doing these on-ramps that he'll let me know about things.
Sure.
But I would also like a process where we have things online of like, hey, this is what we do with her. She needs to have that box, because sometimes I don't know until I see it. And by then it's like, oh, okay, she has been fighting because everybody around her or him have been doing these. And we get into that mindset of, I'm in a class setting. I need to do what everybody else does. And I'm not going to tell that coach because nobody else has told that coach, hey, this is bugging me or I have that. I would love down the road for our gym to do that.
Yeah. Well, and I think, so many people are afraid the minute you say you've got an injury is that like, because most people, I guess, that come into it and stick with it, they're like, they're drinking the Kool-Aid, right? I mean, they're like, ooh, I don't want something to stop me from doing this, stop that momentum. But I think with me being a therapist in CrossFit and with the level of experience, I mean, gosh, way back in the day, it'd be like, oh, you hurt your back. You should just not do much for several weeks. Oh my gosh, that's the worst thing. We need to keep people moving, right? We have to do the right movements at the right times for the right injury. And my approach very much, and I think both of you guys, witness the same thing, is like, I'll tell you when it's kind of like, okay, we need to hold off right now. And it's not very often that I tell somebody, no gym for, weeks, it's I mean,
you were pushing it though, girl.
I did horrible things.
You shouldn't be burping right now.
I was patient zero.
Right. Well, yeah.
And you had to stop flexing that butt.
Right. Holy cow.
And now it's just the one side, which I got to talk to you about.
Okay. Right. We need to fix it up.
Oh, no.
But I think, my goal is to we have a really deep conversation. And actually, Joyce and I had this one too. Like, what can we do? Like, you have to be okay with not doing what everybody else is doing, but being with your community, because that's so important. Like, you need your people, right?
Yeah.
And the coaches here are so good at being like, hey, do this, not this. And if they don't know, I get texts. Hey, I've got, Joyce here. And I know you said no bending. Could she do such and so?
Yep.
I love that. I mean, that's great. I want to keep people here because we mentally need this. We need to keep moving. So what can we do to still work on getting you to heal? But yet keep your, head in the right space.
Yeah.
Too.
And I know when I've taught classes, you come over and be like, hey, I think so-and-so is going to be in your class. They can't do this. They can do this. Can you watch them for this? Make sure they're not going up in weight. They need to stay in here, which I love too. I would love also if you did a class for all of us coaches of hey, if this is the injury that they're seeing, these are the things that can be, or even a list of these are no-goes for right now.
Right. I love that.
Because, I would, because the only reason I knew to something was because it was an injury that I have had and I saw it right away. Though I did tell her 2 weeks prior to go see you. And I feel like that also gets met with no, because I don't. And I'm I'm not a physical therapist. I'm not a doctor. But these are signs that I had. Could it be something that I have? No. But I know that you're not comfortable and you're in pain.
Right.
So why not go see that person?
Sure.
But yeah, it's the whole, well, I'll be fine. I've had this
it'll go
before.
away. I'll walk it off.
Away. And I always tell everybody in class, do not be like me. I'm also in my 30s. This is supposed to happen what I thought when I was in my 90s.
Right.
Which I can't even imagine that pain in my 90s now.
Right.
But when it happened, I knew what to do and what to be, what to kind of relax her with, and then be like, and you are, because I don't give them that option, because I did the same thing to her over here. You are texting her today.
Yeah.
I don't care. And I walked into Carol's office and was like, oh, Josie's going to be coming to see you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's good. I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
But yeah, the only reason I knew that is because of things that I learned by being your patient. So that's why I would love a class of hey, if there's shoulder, because there are some members, who are okay, well, I'll go off of here. And I'm always but should you? Because you just said you just told me that your shoulder hurts. No, I'll be fine. I'm well, we can do something else.
Right.
And I love doing something else. And I've said it on other episodes where I'm I designated something just for you. I didn't do that for the rest of the class. That doesn't mean that you're a horrible student in here. That means that you're better. And I'm actually doing a one-on-one with you. Yeah. And everybody's not getting that.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed being I can eye it from over here.
Right.
And you are seeing Carol because I'm not fixing it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Joyce, you had asked about the most common things I see Backs, obviously, we see back injuries, backs, necks, shoulders, not as many knees as you would think. A handful of knees. We get some plantar fasciitis in the feet.
Yeah.
I would say, honestly, those are the most common. Occasionally, we'll get probably then the next thing after that would be elbow tendonitis, tendinosis type things from all the grippy stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of necks and backs, which is great for me. I have my McKenzie certification and I love the approach for backs and necks. And so it's great that we get to see those.
Yeah, and you get to see everybody press up and know what's going on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like when they would do it.
The retraction.
Yeah, the retraction of the neck. And I had to ask her one time, I was like, what is that? Because it looks really cool. And I went,
right?
And I was like, it's actually what you do for the press up. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Right.
It's just like learning that. And also all of the things that you are going, like getting your level 1. I know that you coach, but you also did the dry needling and you're going into pelvic floor.
Yes,
like,
I'm so excited.
The way that you look at things, like I just got goosebumps, and wanting to grow and learn about all these things is amazing, because I think that's also what's happening with our athletes, because we are doing different things and we don't just want to stay stagnant with like stretches. Like me doing press ups for like 6 months was not going to make me feel like I was doing anything. So like your knowledge of everything really helps as well. With coaching, do you feel like you coach differently because you're a physical therapist of like?
Yeah, definitely. And I remember listening to, I listened to all your podcasts, but the one that had Chris, Amanda, and Mary, and they were talking about like, I'm a stickler for form. And that's the therapist in me. As much as I can. Yeah. I mean, I could be like, oh, I'm not going to look at their form because, that's business for me. No, I don't ever want anybody injured. Right. So I think as I'm coaching and I see like maybe on a day that we're doing deadlifting, I'm going to look really like differently at that. We talk about, I try and just go into too much detail, but we talk about neutral spine position. We talk about bracing your abdominals the right way, because that's where a lot of injuries happen, is when we don't do those things properly. So I do feel like I coach a little bit differently. Maybe if we're doing something, I love our new programming. There's times where I feel like maybe there's not enough mobility work ahead of, let's say, maybe like it's a day where we're doing a lot of kipping or chest to bar or something else, activities on the rig. And so I'll add a little bit more of overhead mobility stuff in prior to, just because I know that I need that personally myself as well. So I think I do coach a little bit differently with that.
Yeah, I remember last week there wasn't a lot for one of them. There was a game, and I was like, I don't have enough people for the game, so we're actually going to do more mobility in our shoulders and stuff. And it was a heavy shoulder week. Yeah. And I like that. That's what we do. Like, we look at what can better our athletes. But yeah, like they were very adamant about, like, she is very stickler about like form, and I was like, and she should be, because like she can see everything. And the biggest thing is stabilization. Like, also, I would love to like sit through a class about stabilizing and how to really cue that athlete and what they should be feeling, and then maybe do a sit down with everybody again. But I think like coaching wise, we can say it. Sure. But like there's all kinds of different cues and what we can feel for. Right. And that has helped me with so much. And other people who have gone through you are like, oh, okay, now. And I was like, right? Like, once you sit down and go through like some of the exercise she makes you do, then you completely understand. And when you go to lift, even if it's the bar, you totally understand what you're supposed to be feeling.
Right. Every time.
Yeah. Because that would be just me squeezing my butt. I was like, okay, I'm bracing. I was like, you guys, like, I really have really like a butt that just likes to be flexed the entire time.
I mean, you know, there could be worse things, I guess. But
that's true.
I think that's worse because I can't twerk. Like the butt does not move.
When will you ever need to twerk? That's my question.
That's a whole other podcast.
Walking around to do my dishes.
She's twerking on the table, guys. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but like Carol, I don't
butt cheek is.
Because I don't know what she had you do at home, but she literally was like, hey, when you're washing the dishes,
Or every time you go down or
Yeah. Hey, when you're doing this, like literally just standing, she was like, hey, when you feel like it's flexed.
Oh, you have an overactive butt cheek.
Yeah, I do. I had both of them overacting.
Mine's are. That's why they're not so perky. No, just kidding. Gotta make it work, girl.
Right. But that's the other thing, like also giving us homework.
Yep.
And things like that.
Makes a difference.
Makes a big difference.
And I think that, you know, as I was kind of thinking about this podcast and thinking about like what makes me who I am as a therapist is I've always thought of it as it's teamwork. And so many people come into therapy and it's kind of like, you know, well, you know, Carol, what are you going to do for me?
Right.
Well, I'm going to teach you. I love teaching, which is funny. My mom is probably like, I told you my mom's a teacher. My mom was a teacher. She's in her 80s now. But, and we came from a long family of teachers, and people are always saying to my sister and I, you know, aren't you guys going to be teachers? We're like, no, we don't want to be teachers. And we're kind of teachers, I guess, you know, being therapists. But, I like that. I think what makes the model work, is that when you get people that are invested in getting better and you can teach someone like, hey, I need you to do it this way, or I try to make it functional. Like when you're going to do, like when you're washing the dishes, feel, you know, put your fingers on the other side of your, you know, the inside of your pelvis. And are you engaging those muscles properly? Yep. And I think the people that do the best are the ones that are like, give me more exercise, like teach me what I need to do, as opposed to me doing something to you. I don't go home with you. So if the only time you're going to do an exercise is the hour that we're together once a week, it's probably not going to do it. Right. So those people that embrace that piece of, tell me what I can do at home. Tell me what I can do in the gym. Those are the people that get better faster, you know?
Yeah. And I also feel like when we were starting to go up, like we progressed with the bars and you'd be right by me and even giving me cues of like that stabilizing and letting me know like, oh no, we're not doing that. We're to do this. Okay, we can't do that. But actually being physically here with the barbell or the dumbbells. And at some point you're like, okay, what movement do you feel it in the most? And then I would show you and you'd be like, oh, okay, I know exactly why you're feeling it.
Right.
And to just be like, instead of going to a doctor's office and I don't have a barbell and I don't remember how it feels or things like that, because I'm a very like physical where I have to do it right in front of somebody to remember what it feels like. So to have those options was very nice to be here and do.
Well, and I think we've even expanded. I don't know if I was doing it as much when I was working with you, but I do a session where we figure out how to load the bar properly. How do you pick up the weights? How do you go over to the stack of weights and do it with good body mechanics? How do you put it on there? Because, you know, you get so worried about, you know, maybe doing too much bending or bending in the wrong way. Okay, so you go into class, how are you supposed to load the bar? You know, how are we supposed to do those things? So I love working with people on that too, because again, it's that whole safety piece of, I want you back in the gym. This is what you want to be doing. So let's figure out a way to do it without having you hurt yourself by loading the bar.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's like about establishing practices that are going to take you the long run and not just like you said, an easy fix. Like it's not just like, oh, you're fixed, you're done, we're done with this transaction next. It's more like, how do you build those habits that are going to keep your CrossFit journey going?
Absolutely.
So I think that's awesome. I still stretch all the time.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's
every
good.
single time I'm like, yes, she'd be so proud of me.
And I think it's hard because, I mean, as you kind of jump into CrossFit, like at least I remember when I joined, I didn't really do a lot of stretching. I just kind of showed up to class and went going. But I think it took me time to figure out what my body needed in order to be warmed up or prepped or feeling good. And I feel like a lot of athletes haven't quite figured that out as to like how long they need to stretch or what areas they need to focus on. And I think PT is a great way to kind of figure that out.
For sure.
Yeah. It's also like age, because I feel like CrossFit, because you're doing, I don't want to say all of us, but majority of new CrossFitters, no matter what age, there's a lot of movements that you've never ever done. So you do those movements and you don't realize my recovery is completely different as if I was going to do it in my 20s.
Absolutely.
Like even my 20s to my 30s and having 2 kids, my recovery is completely different. So I have to be mindful of like how I'm setting up for class and what I'm doing after class and in between classes, because we also have those athletes who are like, I ran 10 miles and did a little quick EMOM and now I'm doing class. I'm like, oh my gosh, how does your body feel after all that? You know, and it gets different with how time goes. So I know we talked about the CrossFit athlete, but you also see non-CrossFit athletes here.
Absolutely.
And what clients do you? Because I don't know, like for
very
physical
limited,
therapy,
yeah.
like, and then how do they know to come see you here? Like,
what are the warning signs, kind of thing, or
just
how do I get them?
Yeah.
So I do get a lot is word of mouth, honestly. Like I was saying before, maybe a member would come up and say, my husband hurt their shoulder. Like, could you help them too? Some of the medical providers in the community are aware of me, so I'll get some referrals through them. And again, that kind of builds on them too. If it's a good experience, that patient's going to go back and say, hey, I saw Dr. Carol and she did this for me and I'm now doing this. So that helps as well. I think, again, being in a small community, my sister has lived here for a long time, and she'll run into people and, or somebody from their church or, that type of thing. I will get cases through that. With Chris's help, he kind of encouraged me to, and I did a website this year, which Blake is featured on.
It's a really nice website too, because I talked to you about it with what me and Joycey might like in the future do.
Right.
Like, I love your website.
Because your picture is all over it.
No, I don't like pictures of myself.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's very nice to navigate.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people are so much more, going on the internet now and looking up things. I had a girl, one of my most favorite patients, and I worked with her this summer, and she said, I said, how did you find me? And she said, well, my parents live in Kingman, and I looked up your website. She's a college student at NEU. Love her. And she's like, she goes, it looks like you have a really holistic approach, and I like that. And I want you to work with me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's cool, because that's who I am. Yeah. I look at the whole person. It's not just, oh, I'm just looking at a shoulder, but I'm looking at the whole thing. I got an extra certification in functional nutrition, that I use in therapy. And, I love that too, because chronic pain can have some nutrition pieces in there too. So I think, people are finding me and they say, I just want to thank you somehow. And I'm like, just tell other people, I'm here and, what I stand for. And so, I get a lot that way. So,
yeah. Well, I feel like when I went through nursing school, like holistic, was the first thing that you learned about, but you don't see it as much. Mm-hmm. And for me, it started to go downhill with a lot of things, even like as the years have gone, but definitely during COVID and everything. And like how you are, it is like the whole body. Because you also get with Carol, you get a free therapy session. She's not that kind of therapist yet, but she will listen to your issues. And there was times when
the other kind of therapy. Yeah, I was like, wait, I'm offering free therapy. Wait a minute, that's not a good business model.
No. So she would sit there and let me complain about how I just felt like the end of the world and how things were going. And she would just be like, but look at what you can do. Okay, we're going to do this. And she would try and build my strength in different ways and just be like, it's okay. These things are fixable. It just takes time. I mean, when she did tell me my nerve and was like, that could be this long or this long, we just don't know. And I heard a year. That's all I heard. And I was like, oh my God, a year of my life is gone. But like giving me all the things to set everything up was perfect. So she does do those sessions too. And every once in a while you'll hear me yell, yeah, me too.
I know. I'm like, I'd be in the table and I'm like, I just hear you yelling out on the other side. I'm like, this is my privacy time.
Right.
And I only do it if it's Joycey or somebody that I know.
Right. Yeah, you're like, stop flexing.
Right.
But I think that's a good point. Like when it comes to injuries, it's a big mental game. And I think like coming to your PT and telling them aside, like from, I'm feeling pain here, but also like, this is hard. Like now I'm limited in so much like I can do. And it gets to you in terms of like, what does that mean in terms of my future? And how is that going to like show in the gym? And it's really complicated, I think, when it comes to injuries. And that's something that you see also in your craft. So how do you feel like you manage that with your athletes, helping them kind of navigate through that too?
It's funny when you go through PT school, we have to take a lot of psychology classes. And honestly, during my undergrad, I think I had to take maybe 2 additional classes, if not 3 above what was required. And I had a minor in psychology with it.
Cool. Tanya, she loves learning.
I do.
And I love that. And it's not a snooty, I love learning. It's like, I love learning to better myself in this, but also better my clients or, the people around me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think too, therapy has changed so much over the years too. And, I'm all about being a fitness forward therapist. Like, it used to be, you have your older people and, don't put barbells in their hands. Don't put dumbbells, be careful, all this kind of stuff. No, that's wrong. Yeah. I have my mom, she'll do deadlifts from a box or she'll do seated thrusters, and we need to be loading our older adults a little bit more, but that's a side tangent. But, about the psychological stuff, I think, you can't not address it.
Yeah.
I think, and again, not that you don't do any physical therapy, but you have to put the 2 pieces together, because to get that great outcome, you have to address and figure out that person where they're at. Like what is their subconscious, what is their conscious mind telling them about what's going on? And I've had injuries myself that, I've had to work through. And so I understand that feeling. I know that I had an injury, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and man, it was that same thing that, everybody else goes through. Like, I'm like, I don't want anything to make it so I can't do CrossFit now. And I think having that experience was probably good, because it taught me like, okay, how can I still do CrossFit and work through this injury and still get what I need to get out of it? So I think addressing that it's all part of it. And I think our sessions lend themselves to that. Again, I think it's that one-on-one, we're in a room by ourselves, we're talking through those things. And it kind of usually comes out. If somebody needs to talk about it, it comes out and we figure it out.
Yeah. With the clients, touching back on the ones that are not going through CrossFit, how does this gym facility help you with that? Because I've seen you walk with them in our big room.
Yeah.
How does the facility help with those type of clients?
So I think it's figuring out what that client needs. My older clients that I have actually enjoy being in the gym. I haven't really had anybody that's like, "Ooh, can we just stay in the room?" And if they wanted to, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think it's good for people to see other people exercising. I have a lady that I've worked with, and she was like, "I'm coming to you because this is the kind of place I want to be in." I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I have to tell a really funny story too. And I think I've told you, Blake, this, I believe, but, we've talked about my mom and dad a little bit, and we had this conversation. Goes a while back. And, my dad is a man of few words, and he came up to me and he said, "Your mom and I have something we need to talk to you about."
Oh,
okay.
No.
I'm like, "Ooh, wow." And, it's nothing big, but, we need to talk about this. I could tell he was kind of, pretty serious about it. And I was like, okay. I'm thinking it's like they're changing their will or they're, I don't know, whatever. And my dad's like, "Well, your mother and I watched this show and we have a little bit of concerns about that gym that you go to." I was like, "Really? Like what? Like what? Why?" What? Well, we're worried that it's a cult.
Oh,
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean? Well, there's bad things that go through some of these gyms, and I think you need to be aware. And now your sister's involved with it too. We need to be aware. And I'm like,
oh no.
I was like,
now we got Dennis in,
right? No. Yeah. And I'm like, I can assure you that this is not a cult. It's just a really good gym. And so then, months later, then, my mom started coming here for therapy, and I purposely wanted her to meet Chris, and then they got to meet Amanda and Mary. And, my mom definitely has a little bit of a boy crush on Chris. But and now she gets it. And what's really cool, and I think this is just, I guess we could talk all day long about why this is a great gym, but my mom has said to me multiple times, she goes, you know what? She goes, I love it there. She's like, even the young ones, she says, the young ones, they come up to me and they make me feel welcome. She goes, why would they do that? She goes, I'm an old person. And I said, but that's the culture that we have here, is that anybody is welcome. And my other patients feel that too. They're like, wow, I'm not even in CrossFit. And people come up and they cheer me on. And one of my patients was learning to walk in this area over here. She had a very, very, very serious injury. And we kind of got to the point where we were ready to start weaning from the walker a little bit. And one of the members was standing there and she videotaped it. She videotaped the patient walking with the cane for the first time. And my patient she lit up. Like, she was like, that was so nice. Now I can send this to my family. Everybody's cheering for her as she's walking. It was the coolest thing, because I get to share that piece with my patients too. Yeah. That's awesome. And I love that.
It's nice when they come in that I start to notice the ones that come in, and I'm always like, hi, how are you? She's still with somebody. Right? She's changing. She'll be right with you. How's your day going? A long way. Yeah. Like, how's your day going? How are you doing? Because I've seen you in here a couple times.
Right.
It's nice to see you back.
Absolutely. And they like that. They like that.
Don't
piece.
mind me.
Oh, good. Because I was like, I feel like I'm that annoying one where they're like, oh, they're making her welcome everybody.
Oh, yeah, right.
And I'm like, no, I just like to see people.
Right.
And if I see people tons of times, I'm like, oh, well, you know what? Let me just say hi to them.
Right. And that's good, because you never know where people are at in that moment. And sometimes it's just that extra person saying, hi, how are you today?
Yeah.
That makes such a difference.
Because I'm never like, oh, let me say hi to them and get them into CrossFit. It's always like, hi, I'm so happy that you're here to see Carol. How's your day going?
Yeah.
And I think that's just because I know what you're doing in that room, and I know what you're doing for those people. And, it means a lot, because you've done a lot for me. And every time I do my stretches, I'm like, oh, I'm so thankful that Carol was here and put me through, because I was doing really, really well. And then all of a sudden I helped somebody and I totally messed everything up, and Carol was there for me. And Amanda going through a similar thing really helped me too, because we used to text each other and be like, the world is ending.
Right. But I think that what's really great about that is that I think the coaches, I think almost everybody I've worked with, and so they see what that is. But I think that's great for our members too, because and it's great for me too, because I know that if I've got somebody that's coming back after a back injury, you get it, and I love that for our members, that they have the coaches that are kind of aware of like, hey, this is what injury's like. This is what I did. The ones that I'm sending back, earlier we have conversations of, hey, let's do this, let's not do this. But I think they see you guys model that it's okay to admit, yeah, I hurt myself.
Yeah.
And, but we're going to work through it.
Yeah. And I feel like with your discussions with them in the room or even outside when you're showing them exercises, it's more of now turning that culture of like, I don't want to say that I'm injured, into actually coming out to me, because I am one of those, and I know Chris is, and I'm sure you are too, like where we meet one-on-one to make sure like, oh, what do you have on your board? What can we do? And I literally am like, okay, what are we doing? Or how are we feeling today? How is your back with that? Or how is your shoulder with that? And I've even had a few come up and been like, this is hurting. Can I do this, or do you have another movement?
Yeah.
And that's starting to cross over to athletes that don't have like a prevalent injury. They're just like, it's feeling weird today. Is there something else I can do?
Love that.
And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, we don't have to. And I've started to say it now in classes. If you haven't hit your that number and the movement, it's not RX, it's scaled, but that is your RX for today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just starting to get our members to understand that, because there's no need to be an RX athlete every single day. That's more wear and tear on your body.
For sure.
What is your goal, or what do you see yourself doing with Inspire?
Big question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel pretty invested at this point. I have another full-time job that I work, and coming here after that, it's a long day, but I love it. Like, my heart's happy because I know I'm helping people. So I would love for this to, eventually be my full-time job. Again, I know that these are the people that I want to stay with. I love the business model that Chris and Amanda and Mary have. So if I'm going to do this, it's the group I want to be a part of. I love that they have progressive thinking. They're looking forward. They're always talking about growing. And that's who I am. Even after all of these years of doing therapy, like you talked about, dry needling was something new for me. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? We didn't have dry needling 30 years ago, but that's what's out there now. And I see the benefit it, and it's great. For athletes, it's great for, a lot of different populations of people, pelvic floors and other things. So it's like, let's keep growing these things that, are really needed to be out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love for this to kind of blossom into a full-time thing, and we're making good strides to getting there.
Yay. Yay. Do you have any other therapists
tips
with you?
Advice? I was gonna say 2 eventually, but you can answer your question first.
I was like, that's 2 different questions.
Yeah. Do you have anybody who's also joining your team, or do you want to grow in that way as well?
Absolutely. I would love to get to the point where there's 2 or 3 of us here, kind of providing that fitness forward style of therapy. Recently, Dr. Andrea joined me, and I love her. She's a CrossFitter as well. She's actually a level 1 coach as well. Her passion is pelvic floor, women's health, incontinence. She works with men and women who have different types of incontinence issues. She's very skilled at what she does. She's inspired me to jump into the pelvic floor world. So she's joined me. She helps me out right now, just, very part-time. She works 4/10, so she's got a day off. And, so she kind of helps me out and is able to offer some, specialty things that I don't have the training for quite yet. And then I would love, down the road to, have 2 or 3 of us in one spot, being able to provide therapy for Kingman.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Go ahead with yours.
I need to go into dry needling. I haven't really dabbled into that
world.
It's
amazing.
Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah.
Well, if you need to practice on anyone.
All right. All right.
I'm like, just don't knock me out.
Right? No.
No, it's not one of those where it's just like, you're knocked out.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like Kung Fu Panda, where they learn, they're like, oh.
Yeah. No, my only closed call was I dry needled myself. I tried to get Dennis to dry needle me.
Oh,
and
no.
He was like, not going to have it.
He's like, I can't do it.
I was like, Dennis, I'm hurt. Like I hurt myself in a competition. I need you it's just in my leg. And he's like, he looks at me like I had 3 heads. He was like, absolutely not. I'm not going to do that. I'm like, I'm right here. I'll show you. I just don't know if I can do it.
I'd been like, this is a test. If I need you to do something, you have failed.
Yeah, no. So our final agreement would be, I was like, okay, at least I've got to do this to myself. You just stand here in case I do pass out.
Right.
I didn't pass out. I was able to do it myself.
Yeah, because inflicting self-harm, some people like that. Like, that's something that I couldn't do. A lot of times, like in nursing, they're like, well, you give shots and all this stuff. I was like, I'm not injecting myself.
Right.
I can't feel that.
Right. And it's not painful. It's just that whole idea of
hitting the right.
Well, not even that. Like, I had no worries about that. It's just doing it to myself.
Yeah.
Like that I'm going to, put a needle in myself.
Yeah.
But it all went good. So I'm like, cool.
But I was going to ask, like, what would be some tips, I guess, for CrossFitters in terms of like avoiding an injury? Some things, this could be something simple that you would recommend us do like every day, like, stretching before, after, like some things that you think would be beneficial.
I think it's, I love apps like GoWOD. I think it's a great app. I use it myself. I think it's finding those areas where your mobility is an issue. And whether you see a physical therapist or you use a GoWatt app or you talk to a coach, we learn in the level 1 coaching, we learn about some mobility issues and, where you see some movement faults and how to fix it. I think dealing with those mobility restrictions is a big piece and doing something daily. I use my GoWatt app every day. I will eternally to my grave have tight hamstrings. But I work on it. I have to work on it. But in my head, I know that that's what it takes for me to keep doing CrossFit at 55. And I want to be doing this when I'm 75, 85. I want to be that girl. Right. So I think that that's a big piece. I think the other thing is being willing to be coached and being willing to be a coachable person. And I've had people in my classes too, where it's like, I really think you should do this or this, and this is why, and they choose to do something else. And again, I'm not their mom. I'm going to be like, I forbid you. But I think listening when, a coach sees you and watches you move and it's like, that looks like garbage. I'd rather you do this, and being okay with that.
Right.
I think that's a big piece in CrossFit. You just it's okay to be scaled. And Dennis and I've had this conversation too. He's like, well, I don't want to go in there if, I can't do 100% of everything. And I'm like, that's the wrong attitude.
Yeah. He's even told me that recently where he's like, I don't want to go to class if I can't do those movements. I was like, Dennis, that's not the point of CrossFit.
Right. And I mean, what I have figured out with my own husband is that I usually talk to Dave and tell
Dave's the best.
I tell Dave what I want Dave to tell Dennis. And if Dennis hears it from Dave, it's usually good. So I just feed Dennis feed Dave what I need Dennis to know.
That's so funny. I did the same thing.
Right?
Because you've been like, oh, Blake. And I was like, he doesn't look at me like that. He looks at me as like an annoying sister. He's just like, Dennis, you shouldn't do that. And then he goes, I know.
Right. Yeah.
Dave is the best person to filter through things. And if Dave can't get through to the person, I'm like,
then I don't know how to help you.
That person just not ready yet.
Right. Exactly. So I think mobility is just it's a key piece. And, taking a video of yourself, I think that's great too. How do you move and showing it to a coach, like, hey, I was doing this. How does this look? And being willing to take those suggestions.
Yeah.
Would you do anything if like a member who's not injured just wanted to see you to test their mobility? Because I know we don't have that yet for on-ramp, but would you do that?
Absolutely. That's in the game plans. That's in the game plans to have a kind of just a 30-minute mobility session of check-in. Here are the areas that your mobility is lacking. And here's maybe a couple exercises that you could do that would help that. Absolutely. That's in the workings.
I'm excited. Like I said, I would love for that to be on our on-ramp too. And I would love to have I know monthly's not in it, but if we do like coaches meetings in the facility, like even a rundown of like, hey, I'm starting to see this. These are things that we need to work on when we're doing these lifts with the things. I know you guys are doing the best, but I'm starting to see an influx of this. And it's, I feel like a big thing is stabilizing because of the back issues. But yeah, just having like a sit down of like, hey, if their shoulder and they're doing this, make sure that they're doing this stretch before they come in or something like that for the longevity of our members.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, it's a great point too, is that's why I like pairing up with Chris and team, because the goal, I mean, we have a goal together is keep people in the gym, keep them here. Like, it just makes me sad when people are injured and then they leave and then they, they're done because they're either scared and I get that. I mean, I do get that, but it's
hard to get them to come back.
Yeah. We have that common goal of like, hey, let's deal with it and keep you in the gym so we don't lose them as members, because they're our family too.
Yeah.
All right. So how can Kingman CrossFit can reach out to you, but how about other listeners if they want to inquire about your services? I know we talked about your website. What's your website? What's your Instagram?
Yeah. So all of my contact information is on the website, and it's inspirekingman.com.
Nice.
And we talk about the services that we offer. I've got some testimonials on there. We talk about kind of what to expect for the first appointment. And that's a big thing that, we just assume that like everybody knows what therapy is. And I still run into people, have you ever had therapy? And nope, I never have. And I'm like, first of all, that's awesome. But second of all, they have no idea what to expect. And, is it scary, and is it going to hurt? And, I have people that, will come in and they're like, oh, my friend told me, and then I'm going to therapy the first time, I should take like a heavy dose of my pain medication. I'm like, wow, like what kind of therapy was that? So I think, we can go through like what to expect. Like, I'm going to ask you questions. It's going there, giving me a phone call, a text. Nice. And then I have a system that we send intake information to the patients. It's all electronic, which is great. It's really quick and easy. I send it to an email. So you don't have to come in with any papers or anything like that. We talk about if you are using insurance or you're not using insurance, what that looks like. And then just kind of break a session down. And different people have different needs. You've got people that are in it for the long haul and they really want to battle something. You've got other people that, hey, I just want a couple sessions and then work on it on my own. We meet you where you're at and what your needs are. InspireKingman.com has the information. Nice. You can always come into Kingman CrossFit as well. I have flyers and as business cards on the front desk. Nice. That's a great way to get in touch.
Yeah. And what is it that you offer through your therapies? Because we touched lightly on dry needling.
Oh yeah, sure. So traditional physical therapy, and you don't have to be an athlete. It can be any orthopedic issues, shoulder, all the joints, neck, back. So your traditional therapies, it could be after you've had a surgery. I take post-surgical patients, ACL reconstructions. It could be total hip, total knee, traumatic injuries. We do that. We do dry needling. Dry needling can be part of a therapy session, which I like doing that way. It can also be something separate. I've had patients come and just say, hey, I just want a dry needling session to work on, I've pulled my quad and I need dry needling for that. So I do that. I've got lots of areas of wanting to expand into. Definitely want to push more forwards into the functional nutrition. Working with people that maybe have chronic pain or anti-inflammatories, autoimmune disorders that could be related to food. I've been a nutrition coach for years in the past, and actually I just am taking a new nutrition course to be able to maybe offer that here in the future. Nice. Maybe join up with our team here, bringing that into it. Pelvic floor, working with incontinence, working with postpartum. I think that's a big thing as well. Just anything that is coming up that's a physical issue that's impairing you from doing what you want to do in your daily life. We work on it. So well,
thank you for being on the podcast.
I really appreciate it. I love getting the word out. There is hope out there. I mean, and as much as I hate to say, I mean, just like doctors, there's good doctors and bad doctors, and there's unfortunately not so great therapists. And I just feel like I love that I can provide the type of service. The way insurances go now, it's so frustrating because they can dictate, how many visits you get to see and what you can do and how often you can do it. And oh my gosh, that drives me crazy. And being able to do a private practice like this with doing it the way I want to do it is great because I don't have to work with that. And I think that's something else to point out. We haven't even talked about that, but Arizona is a direct access state. Okay. And what that means is, except for certain insurances like Medicare and there's a couple others that are commercial insurances, but the normal everyday person doesn't have to have a doctor's referral to come to therapy. Whereas that used to always always be the case. You had to have go see the doctor. And in Kingman, it is hard to get into a primary care doctor. So you have to wait to get that, and then, wait so that they can, write a referral for you to come to therapy. And we don't need that in Arizona. So that's really great. So you can have injured your knee and call me and say, I hurt my knee, and we get you right in and we start doing therapy right away. I'm in communication with the doctor if you want me to. That's not a big deal. But we do have that so that we can start care right away. So,
because I did not know that. But Kingman to me is set up so differently from when I lived in Phoenix and in California and stuff like that. Kingman is like its own bubble. And it is like, okay, well, I need to find my provider, and then the provider writes the referral, because a lot of times, like, when I go for my son, I'm like, no, like, because I grew up on HMO PPO. So PPO, I don't have to have a referral, no matter where I live or whatnot. And that's why I'd be like, no, I don't need your referral. Can you just guide me who to see? Because you are a healthcare provider. I don't know. I can go and look at referrals and things like that. But it's nice to know that, like, in Arizona, we don't have to do that. Because I did not know. I just went off of, I have a PPO. I can go wherever I want.
Right. Yeah, I think the physical therapy world is expanding. They actually just recently passed that physical therapists can now order imaging, which is really exciting too.
Oh my gosh, nice.
Yeah. So we're still dealing with the insurance companies and how they handle that piece. But we're really getting out there, and I love that. I want to just keep, staying update with things that are out there, keep learning and providing the best therapy I can.
Good. Well, we're grateful for it.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm grateful to be here. That's for sure. So I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Of course. Thank you.
Man, that was such a good episode with Carol.
She's so sweet.
And I'm excited for upcoming ones with Carol and Andrea to go over maybe some pelvic floor, because it's really good for ladies and men.
Yes, and also dry needling, because I actually heard a lot about it recently from some of my fellow CrossFit athletes on how beneficial that can be. So I'm really intrigued, and I'm really curious on how that works and also what it can do for us. So I'm excited to learn more of this and see how we can improve.
Yeah, so if you want to get in touch, if you're in the Kingman area, of course, any of our gym members who listen and they're like, I wanted to know more before I got into it, feel free to reach out to inspirekingman.com. These are also going to be in our show notes that you could click on. The show notes are when you open up whatever app you're going to be in. It has a little description of what the episode is. You scroll all the way down and we'll have these links for you. You can also reach out to them on Instagram at inspire_Kingman and DM them there as well. But yeah, it was just great to hear from them.
Yep, and pick their brain a little bit, because let's be real, there's a lot of injuries that we as CrossFit athletes deal with, and sometimes we just need a little bit of knowledge as to how we can treat them and get some help along the way. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask for that help. So reach out to Carol. She has some great knowledge to share, and she's readily available to come and help you with any of your injuries or things you want to improve. So give her a shout.
And if you feel this podcast is your swig of pre-workout, please subscribe to us on YouTube at Savagely Scaled. We are also on Instagram and TikTok at Savagely Scaled as well. Or you can email us with episodes that you want us to talk about, dive deep into, or anything like that. Email is savagely_1 @gmail.com.
Numero uno.
And remember, don't be a Karen.
Be a Sharon.
And keep sharing on that.
That's right.
Until
we meet
at the whiteboard again. Bye.